was the price, that's the quantity, and that was demand. Okay, when you saw that line, the first question you should have asked was this. In a competitive market, consumer take the price, decide the quantity. The same with the producer. Take the price, decide the quantity. Make sense? So you take the price, you decide the quantity. That's really demand. The demand should be the price is set in the market, the consumer looks at it, decide how much to consume. Right? But this is backward. It should be P, Q. Why is it backward? In the competitive market, the price moves and the quantity reacts. Right? But the graph looks backward. This should be X. This should be Y. X should be the price, not the quantity. So why is it backward? You should have asked that question first. In your EQ, did you ask that question? Why did the demand look backward? Mathematically, that's wrong, right? Mathematically, this should be the price. This should be the quantity. So the price moves first, and the quantity reacts. And the answer is, unfortunately, Mr. Marshall, he invented that setup 150 years ago, put the price on a vertical line, and that creates a problem because everyone followed it and did not want to change it. That became sort of the norm. But when you think about it, that's the way the demand looks. When you graph it, you have it backward. So we call this one inverse demand. The demand curve is the inverse demand, not the actual demand. That's the actual demand. The curve is this way. That's the inverse demand function that you see graphed. The actual demand is the other way around, and it's just the way it proceeded over time because Mr. Marshall, who made up the whole thing, set up the price on a vertical line. That creates a problem because when you think about it this way. When you visually see it, you see it this way. So when I say demand is vertical, which one is vertical? Is it this one or this one? Because this is vertical, this becomes horizontal. That be next to each other, right? If demand is vertical, the inverse demand will be horizontal. They're opposite each other. So when I say demand, which one do you mean? I normally refer to it, I refer to this one as demand function, demand curve. Sometimes I say inverse demand, but often just say demand curve. Demand curve is the inverse demand function. Demand function is the actual way you proceed, relating the price and quantity. Make sense? And it's just the way it proceeded over time. Theoretically, you should have it backward. Okay? Okay, question for you. You learned it from AO2. Did you ask that question in AO2? Why the price on the vertical line? You didn't? You're not curious enough. You should be curious enough. Anytime you see something, say, why that's the case? It doesn't make sense, right? When I saw it first, I said, this doesn't make sense. In math, we learn, X is this, Y is this. This is backward. Why that's the case? Unfortunately, Mr. Marshall had everything backward. So we call this one Marshallian setup. Marshallian setup. Okay, question for you. Why demand is downward sloping? That is AO2 again. Why when the price goes down, you buy more? Is it always the case? Is the demand always downward sloping? Or there are exceptions? Why the demand curve downward? Again, AO2. Why curve downward? Think about yourself. When the price goes down, why do you buy more? If you buy more. Hang on. Yeah.
I feel like you're getting a better deal.
What does that mean?
So if
Is it cheaper? That's what you mean?
it's me, it's
Basically, you mean it because it's relatively cheaper.
Yeah.
That's the meaning, right? That is what we call substitution effect. When the price goes down, you buy more because this is relatively cheaper. That's a substitution effect. Is there anything else? What happens when the price goes down? Your purchasing power goes up. You have more money. What does that do to your purchase? If you have more money, do you buy more or less? That's the income effect. Do you buy more or less? You buy more if the good is normal. You may buy less if the good is inferior. You're reacting to these two forces. The outcome technically is unknown. Because this might be negative. If this is negative, you have two forces opposite. You don't know the outcome. Having said that, most goods are normal. So most goods are plus plus. The price goes down, you buy more. Some goods are inferior. But even if they're inferior, that negative is not so strong. You can't sell that positive. As a result, the demand is downward sloping. Not always, almost always. There are exceptions. The exceptions are when the good is inferior, so inferior that the negative effect here cancel out the positive effect there. Did it make sense? If it didn't, that is lecture 3. We're going to do it numerically. We're going to actually find these two numbers. Alright? So you think you know the demand from AO2, but you don't really know it. You just, the worst part is you think you know it. That's the worst part. If you study something and you think you know it and you actually don't know it, that's the worst part. If you don't know it, you actually go study it. If you don't know you don't know it, that's worse. You think you know it. That's what it is. So AO2 is sort of some idea, you think you know it, but you don't really know it yet. If this didn't make sense, it will make sense in lecture number 3. So I'm just taking something from the future. But the demand is downward sloping almost always, but not always. Because you react to two forces. Substitution effect says buy more when the price goes down. Income effect can go either way. Alright? So technically the demand can be upward sloping. But it won't be for normal goods. It might be for some inferior goods. They should be so inferior where the income effect is stronger than substitution effect. That's so rare, typically ignored. It's 1 in a million. Make sense? Anyway. Okay, that is note number 1. Note number 2. The demand is a relation between price and quantity. The relation is negative, we ignore the rare cases. Right? Anything else outside that relation is a shift in the demand. Give me potential shift in the demand. What are other factors that can shift the demand to the right or the left? Anything outside price quantity, like anything outside the price that changes the quantity is a shift. Give me potential shifts in the demand function. Anyone? I'll give you one. Income. Positive for normal good, negative for inferior good. If your income changes, nothing changes, the demand may shift out or in. That's a positive shift, that's a negative shift. If your demand goes to the right, that's a normal good. If the demand goes to the left, that's inferior. What else? What else? Price of other stuff. This is I, that's the price of J. What happens if the price of other stuff goes up? Do you buy more of I or less of I?
Yes.
Well, it can go either way. It depends on whether they're inferior, they're substitute or complement. If the price of J goes up and these two are substitute, you buy more of I. They're substitute. I is more expensive, you go to I. Sorry, J is more expensive, you go to I. If these two are complement, J price goes up, you buy less of both. That's negative. So you can go either way. That is substitute. That is complement. What else? I gave you 2 shifts. What else? Give me another one. Yep.
Could it be externalities?
What do you mean by externality?
I mean, pollution and things like that would affect the cost of the
You're going to the
materials.
supply side.
Yeah, true.
Demand is not cost based. As soon as you talk about cost, you are the supply side.
Inflation?
We normally, in basic economics, we talk about one point in time. Inflation is relative. We talk about now. What now can shift your demand? If your income changes, the price of other stuff changes. If the
Popularity or trending?
taste.
Yes.
The demand is behavioral. Your behavior changes, demand changes. That makes demand very hard to figure out because you change your mind, demand will change. Normally, tastes react to information. The information arrives, you digest it, you react. Information typically unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen next year. You don't know what news will be online next year. If you don't know that, you don't know how demand will be next year because you don't know how you react to it. Say, demand for coffee. Who knows? Next year, some scientists may figure out coffee may cause cancer. Then demand falls. You don't know the information, you don't know how to react to it. As a result, demand becomes very hard to figure out. Economics is very hard to predict anything. Economics is not good in prediction. It's just because demand cannot be figured out. Why? Because demand is behavioral. It's based on taste. It's how you see it. And how you see it depends on information you have and how you digest it. None of them can be predicted. So don't ask an economist to predict the future. They're terrible at it. Because they cannot predict demand. Alright? And it's not their fault. It's not something you can predict. Right? You know, there's a joke about economists. They said 2 economists were walking in a park and they found a $100 bill. You know what they did? What they did? They walked by. Nobody picked it up. One of them told the others, that must be counterfeit. If it's not, someone else would have picked it up. That's an economist. They analyze stuff nicely, sometimes overanalyze. But they predict pretty poorly. They can't predict anything because how can you predict demand? You can't. It's impossible. It's behavioral. The behavior of human being depends on information and how they digest it. You cannot predict that. All right. So you're asked them to do something is not doable. It's not their fault. But they analyze stuff very nicely. They say if this happened, that happened, and that happened, that happened. They do that very nicely. Anyway. Okay. This is an inverse demand. Sorry, this is an actual demand. Linear version of it. That's a linear demand. If you want to graph a linear demand, since it's a straight line, you need 2 points on it. You need 2 points on it. Identify one point on a vertical line, one on horizontal, connect them, you automatically get this slope. Make sense? What's the point on the vertical line? Corresponding to this line. I want to see how you graph a line. If you want to graph this line, you identify one point here, connect it. You'll get the slope, minus b, whatever it was. What's the point there? If q equal to 0, what will be the price? It would be a over b. Just put q equal to 0 and solve it, right? What's the other end of the line? What's the other end of the line? Yeah.
B over A.
Put p equal to 0. You're just using imagination. You're not doing math. Put q equal to 0, solve it, you get this point. Put P equal to 0, solve it, you get the other one. That is A, right? The other side, the other end is A. Right? That's the way you graph a line. Identify the other ends and connect them. What happens there? Connect them. That would be your line, and you automatically get this slope, minus B. Make sense? Okay. Anyway, definition. Say, just an example, if Q was this one, if I want to grab that one, I would have done this. If P equal to 0, Q 80, I would have put 80 there. If Q equal to 0, that is 40, sorry, that's 40. And this would have been my demand. The slope would have been automatically how much? Minus 2. Make sense? Here I have it in general, but if you have numbers, you just can plug the number there. Right? Okay, anyway. Definition. Define elastic demand as percentage change in quantity demanded, percentage change in the price. That's elastic demand. Right? Can be written this way: slope of demand function, price, quantity ratio. So without proof accepted, called elasticity of demand is percentage change, that's delta. Percentage change in quantity, percentage change in price. Make sense? Mechanically, it is slope of demand function. That's the slope of demand function. That is price quantity ratio. That is slope of demand function. These are small deltas. See, this is a big delta, that's change. That's change. This is small delta I derivative. Make sense? Okay. Since demand is downward sloping, this is obviously less than 0, negative, since this is negative. Okay. So normally we ignore the sign. We know it's negative. We report the absolute value. If this becomes more than 1, we call demand elastic. Less than 1, we call it elastic. Right? Okay. Elastic basically means if the price changes by 1%, demand will change by more. Inelastic means it will change by less. Alright? Okay. Check this straight line demand. What is the slope of demand function? What's the slope of demand function? What's your demand? Huh?
Negative B.
Minus B. So this is minus B, which is constant, right? A straight line demand has a constant slope. This is not changing. Say, on the prior example, I guess it was minus 2. It's a number, right? As a result, the elasticity of demand will depend on where you stand on the demand. You stand here, you stand there, you stand in the middle. Right? Suppose you're trying to find elasticity of demand at this point. How much that would be? What's the elasticity of demand there? How much is it? Well, look at the formula plug the price in it. How much is the price? 0. That becomes 0. The demand there is not elastic at all. Make sense? What about here? What is the elastic demand at the other end of the demand function, demand line? What is it there? I know. Because the quantity is 0. So a straight line demand gives you all levels of elasticities, from infinitely elastic to infinitely elastic. Right? In fact, you can show mathematically that right in the middle of the line, the elasticity would be 1. To the right, inelastic. To the left, elastic. Right? Straight line demand gives you all levels of elasticity from 0 to infinity.
So at what point do we get infinite elastic?
When the quantity is 0, if this is 0, that's infinite. This is 0.
Inelastic, sorry.
If the price is 0, it is infinite elastic. The elastic is 0. Elastic. Makes sense? Okay, question for you. It's the same demand. Why do you get all levels of elasticity from it? It's the same demand, it's not different demand, it's the same demand. Why do you get all levels of elasticity from the same demand? What does it mean? Anyone? Based on the concept of elasticity, why do you get all levels of elasticity from the same line? Anyone? I'll give you a hint. Elasticity is proportional change. If you are there, how much do you buy? Nothing. So if the price drops by a bit, you're going to buy a bit. But from a base of 0, that's infinite change. It's a proportional change. If you buy nothing, proportional change becomes infinite change. Make sense? If you buy a lot, proportional change, just a small change, 0 change. Make sense? It's just a proportional change as a result of a straight line. If you buy nothing, you get a giant number. If you buy a lot, you get a small number. So technically, it doesn't mean much. It means if you're evaluating it at equilibrium, at the end, there is one point on the demand you care about. You want the elasticity there. Alright, so don't say straight line, give me all levels. We don't care about all levels. We just care about one point on the demand. That's the equilibrium point. We want to analyze the elasticity there. That tells us a story. It tells us if we change the price by how much the quantity changed at that point, where we stand currently. Make sense? Okay. So normally, when we report elasticity, we report it at equilibrium point. Other points are irrelevant. But the straight line gives us all levels of elasticity, depending on where you stand. Does it make sense? Okay? Okay. Next topic. We come back to this later. Next topic. That is your supply. Again, the supply should look like this, but the graph of inverse of it. The supply should be, the producer look at the price, chooses the quantity, but the graph is backward. So the graph is technically inverse supply function. Right? The graph is this one, which is inverse supply. It's not like I supply, then the price is decided. It's backward. In the competitive market, the price is taken and the quantity is chosen. So the graph is backward, similar to demand. Okay. A02. Why is supply is upward rising? Why when the price goes up, producers produce more? The wrong answer would be they make more money, they produce more. I know a lot of you have that exact answer in your mind, but it's wrong. In the competitive market, there is no economic profit. You pay the input, capital labor, nothing is left. So you cannot say, I make more money, therefore I produce more. That doesn't work. Yeah.
For higher price, the supplier is going to produce and give more.
One more time.
You were asking like why the thing goes up.
I say, why when the price goes up, the supplier produces more?
For a higher price, the supplier is willing to produce and give out more.
That's what I'm saying. That's the question. Why? The question is, why when the price goes up, supplier produces more? And what I said is, you cannot say they make more money. Because in the competitive market, there's no economic profit. Yep.
Because when the price is higher, the supplier wants to sell more at that price so they can make as much money as possible.
Let's have it this way. I'm not sure if you meant this or not. The supply is just a marginal cost. That's the marginal cost. If the price is this, that is a quantity that does not fetch a loss. They cannot produce this one because this will be sold at a loss. The marginal cost of that unit is higher than the price. They're not going to produce it. When the price goes up, it allows them to bring that in line. And it's not that I make money. The marginal cost rises. If the price remains low, the higher production won't be feasible because they will lose money there. But when the price goes up, that will be enabled. Make sense? So although they don't make money, but the rising marginal cost means higher price leads to higher production. Make sense? Okay. So question for you. Can the marginal cost be falling? Can you have a case when the marginal cost is falling? If the supply is a marginal cost and marginal cost falls, then the supply will be downward sloping. Can the marginal cost falls? Yes or no? Can you have a situation where marginal cost is falling, not rising? Can you have a marginal cost that looks like this? Yes? You can, but that leads to monopoly. In a perfect competition, marginal cost can't be falling. We will see that in lecture number 10, I guess. Right? So, perfect competition does not go with falling marginal cost. It will lead to monopoly. In a perfect competition, the marginal cost will be rising. As a result, you will end up with rising supply. Make sense? So, unlike demand where it can be rising, can be falling depending on the case, in the rare cases it can be rising, supply is always rising up. It cannot never be downward sloping. Because the marginal cost for a perfect competition can never be falling. It leads to monopoly. Make sense? Okay. Okay. Next question. That's your supply, which is the relation between the price and quantity. That's a positive relation. We know that. What are potential shifts? What can shift the supply? Yep.
If a product of production increases or decreases, the product cost, the production
Cost. The supplier's production based. So anything that changes is a marginal cost. The supplier's marginal cost. Since it's marginal cost, anything that changes the marginal cost will shift the supply. So anything that changes cost of production will change the supply. That is cost of labor, wage, that is cost of capital. If the cost goes up, what will happen to supply? Will the supply go up or down? Goes down. That is what we call negative supply shock. The price goes up and the quantity goes down. When the supply shifts up, that is what we call negative supply shock. It can happen if the unit cost of production goes up. Make sense? I put the negative sign for it. Everything equal, if labor cost goes up, capital cost goes up, that will shift the marginal cost up. That leads to what we call negative supply shock. So that's the reason why economists don't like minimum wage. Minimum wage is nothing but negative supply shock. It leads to higher prices, lower quantity, everything equal. Right? Make sense? But the primary shock in the supply is unit cost of production. What else? Another one. Yeah.
Technology.
Technology. That is technology that is shifting supply. Better technology will shift the supply out. That's a positive supply shock. High unit cost shift the supply in. That's a negative supply shock. So over time, you have a fight between these two. Yep.
I'm just curious, if economists don't like minimum wage, what do they propose as an alternative?
Nothing. That's in no classical economics, right? No classical economics basically talks about overall setup. It doesn't talk about income distribution stuff like that at all, right? So in that framework, you will end up with a negative supply shock. Sometimes you mean I lack negative supply shock because although the producers are hurt, but the workers are helped. You hurt the producers overall, but a good chunk of that hurt goes to capital owners, not labor owner. That's fine. So you have to make the choice. But overall, no question, minimum wage is a negative supply shock. There's no question about that. If you have a country with a high minimum wage, the cost of production there will be higher. No question about that. Make sense? Whether you like it or not, that's a welfare analysis. Some people like it because they're pro-workers. Some people don't like it, that's pro-capitalists. Make a choice. Yeah.
What does the W and R stand for?
W is the cost of labor, that's wage. R is cost of capital, that's rent. That's plural, the way the structure. What we assume there are two inputs. We ignore intermediate goods normally. W becomes cost of labor. R becomes the cost of capital. Make sense? We'll come back to that in lecture number 6. Okay. So if you think about it, production supply is much easier to predict because over time technology is improving at a sort of more or less constant rate. 4-5%, that's the technology growth every year. That's typical. The labor and capital costs sort of predictable. You know they're rising at 2% whatever over time, so you can figure out how the supply moves over time. The supply is much easier to predict than demand. It's not behavior at all. It's cost-based, technological-based, they can be predicted. So economists have a hard time predicting demand, not the supply. Supply is easier to predict. Make sense? Okay. Question for you. Outside these two, anything else? These are the primary ones. Outside these two, anything else? Oh, that's it. Do you have other potential shifts? Yep.
The other things that would shift the supply?
Yep.
Government intervention. So
We ignore the
taxes.
government for the time being. I know that's fine. Ignore it. We assume that's the fact, no government. I know what you mean. But in the initial setup, we just ignore the government. The main one is any ad hoc is a production base. That's the supply. So any ad hoc change in production can lead to supply shock. Say earthquake, I don't know, flood, well, drought, good weather, they're all supply shocks. Normally we ignore them because they just happen so randomly, they're not really significant. War, that's a supply shock too. Those are ad hoc change in production structure. We sort of ignore them, but they are part of the supply shock. If a war happens, supply shifts up. They can't produce anymore. Make sense? They shut down. If flood happens, the same. If you have good weather in Canada, that's a positive supply shock because agriculture will do well and so forth. Alright? Okay. More. Go to demand. Let's see if we understand demand. This is demand for a good. This is demand for another one. One of them is coffee. The other one is TV. Which one is coffee? Which one is TV? I give you two demands. One for coffee, one for TV. The time horizon is the same. The demand for the next year. Right? Say, which one you think is demand for coffee? Which one you think is demand for TV and why?
I think coffee is the one that's more elastic, TV is the less.
This is coffee.
No. Oh, yeah, that's coffee.
Coffee demand is more elastic. More elastic means there is no attachment to it. It's a coffee. If you don't give me coffee today, I'm not going to go to work. Well, coffee is a daily necessity. You have to buy it every day. Very elastic in the short run. Very elastic to begin with. That is one. That's two. Stuff that are necessities are very elastic. Alright, so comparing coffee to TV, coffee is far less elastic than TV. If the price of coffee doubled, you still buy it. If the price of TV doubled, you're not going to buy it. You delay it. Make sense? So, vertical means really wanted. No alternative to it. Less elastic. Horizontal means, well, there are alternative to it. Not attached to it. More elastic. Comparing these two, coffee is something you cannot replace. That is far less elastic if you compare it to. Make sense? So vertically, graphically, vertical means less elastic. Horizontal means more elastic. Alright? Less elastic means you really need it, no replacement for it. More elastic means there is replacement for it. You can easily replace your TV with your computer, or with just walking outside. Right? There's what kind of attachment to it? Not much, but not coffee. Right? Good. So from here up, vertical means attachment to it, really needed, no replacement, inelastic. Horizontal means more elastic. Make sense? Okay. Let's go further. This is coffee, but two different horizons. One is long run, one is short run. Which one is long run, which one is short run, and why? This is demand for the same good, coffee. But one is long run demand, one is short run immediate demand. Which one you think is long run, which one you think is short run, and why? Yep.
I believe long run is second line and short run is the first line.
So that's a long run. That's the short run. And the reason is?
Because in long run we seek for substitute like tea.
Daily necessities, stuff you buy every day, are very short run, inelastic compared to long run. Because people don't change their habit in the short run. It is not. So if the coffee price doubles, in the short run you still buy it. Inelastic. In the long run, you try to find alternative. That's coffee, that's gas. If gas price doubles, I will still drive 3 of tea. I drive 30 grams every day, one way. So I still drive here, right? While in the long run, I try to find alternatives. But in the short run, I still drive. What are the alternatives? Coming to you of tea. If you have to drive 30 kilometers. TTC? Impossible. TTC is by far the worst public transit in mega cities, if you can call Toronto a mega city. That's terrible, right? But nothing worse than that. Nothing is worse than that. It's the slowest rocket in the world. That's what it is. Anyway, so I'm not gonna think about TTC at all. What's the second alternative? I'd rather walk.
Carpool or something?
I hate people. I can't talk. What else? I may buy a helicopter. I don't know. I'll think about an alternative. That's what you do. So in the long run, it becomes more elastic versus short run.
Don't you think gas is irreplaceable in the long run? Because even the alternatives are dependent on gas. So even if
EV
you're not-
depends on gas?
Yeah. So
No, you can sunroof it.
no, not the electric vehicles, but I mean in the long run, if we're not talking like 30 years.
No. When I'm talking about long run, I'm talking about like a year or two.
Yeah,
I'm not
so-
talking about generation.
So there won't be enough change, so there's
Think
something
about,
dependent on
don't
gas.
aggregate it, don't, think about yourself.
Yeah.
If gasoline doubled, in the short run you still drive. Very elastic. In the long run you find an alternative. You're not gonna spend $4 a liter coming here. You find alternatives. That's what we do, right? Don't complicate it, that's aggregate. We're talking about the person, not aggregate. Make sense? Okay. As a person, that's what I do. In the short run, I don't change. In the long run, I try to find an alternative. Right? That's the way it goes. So, daily necessities are very short run inelastic compared to the long run. They become more elastic. Make sense? Because that's the way we behave. In the short run, we don't change our behavior easily. In the long run, we try to find alternative. If the coffee price doubles, what do you do in the short run? You still drink it. Right? Yes, I do. Most people do. Some people try to find alternative. What's the alternative to coffee? Tea? Tea does nothing. Tea is good for breakfast. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything. Coffee, drink a cup. It's like, you know, they say U of T runs on coffee. That's what they say. It makes you awake, right? It's like magic. Tea does nothing. It just puts you to sleep. Right? So they're completely different animals. They're two different things. I think people they substitute, but they're not. Someone who drinks coffee is not going to move to tea. If you drink a lot of tea, you know what happens? Just drink tea every day for a year. You know what happens? Your accent turned British. You don't believe it? Try it every day for a year. Okay, suppose this is TV, not coffee, not a daily necessity, TV. Which one is the long run, which one is the short run, and why? It's a TV. You don't have to buy TV every day. Which one you think is demand for TV in the long run, which one is in the short run?
Short one's the more elastic one, so number 2. And long
Short run is more elastic. Long run is better. If TV price doubles in the short run, I don't have to buy one, I'm not going to buy one. In the long run, my TV goes bad, I have to buy a new one anyway. So, demand-wise, daily necessities are very inelastic short run, more elastic long run. Everything else is the other way around. Why? Because that's the way we behave. Demand is behavioral, that's the way we react to price changes. Make sense? Okay. If the price of car doubles, you buy a new car, you delay it. That makes it very elastic short run. In the long run, your car becomes a wreck, you have to buy a new one anyway. You get used to it. You buy a new one. That is on the demand side. What about the supply? Is it more elastic long run or in the short run, or it depends? Demand was dependent. What about supply? Is supply more elastic in the long run or in the short run? Or it depends on the good? Supply is always more elastic in the long run versus short run. For an obvious reason, supply is production based. It's easier to change production in the long run versus short run. There's no debate there. The long run more elastic. The debate is on the short run. Is the short run supply vertical, infinitely elastic, or verticalish but not vertical? So every product in the long run is more elastic, no question about it. But some of the products in the short run are vertically vertical, some of them are verticalish but not vertical. I'll give you two goods, identify them. Coffee, that's one. I'm not going to put the one there, you identify it. And copper. In the long run, both are more elastic, no question about it. In the short run, one of them is vertical, infinitely elastic, one of them is not really vertical, but sort of vertical. Which one is which? Which one is coffee? Which one is coffee? And why? Can you change production of coffee in the short run? No, you have to wait a season. You plant, the crop is done until next season. You cannot change it. So coffee becomes in the short run infinitely inelastic. That's one. Vertical. You have to wait a season before the next crop arrives. Make sense? What about copper? You may say copper, well, we have to bring a new mine on, that takes time. Not true. You can always recycle copper. So although copper takes time to bring a production on, if you want to do it through a new mine or so, but you can always recycle it. As a result, in the short run, the supply is not infinitely inelastic, although it's inelastic, but not infinite. Because you can always bring production on through recycling. Right? You know, years ago, a few years back, there was a blackout in London because someone went underground, stole the power lines. You know the way they steal the power lines. You melt it, it's copper, right? And you sell it, it's $10 a kilogram. That's the price of copper. So that's the recycling, right? You add the supply. In fact, in the 60s in Canada, the coins started disappearing. You know why? Because the coins are actually silver. And the content of silver was more than the price of the coin itself. So people took the silver and melted them to get the silver out of them. That's recycling. Alright? So stuff that aren't really agricultural product like base metals, in the short run, the production is not infinitely inelastic, although it's inelastic but not infinite. Make sense? Okay, anyway, that's the setup. We'll take a break. That's what we do. I went too far here. Normally I spend like 35 minutes, 40 minutes, stuff like that, setting it up. Then I go through problems. That's what we call teaching through problems. It only works if you watch the video. If you don't watch it, it looks like I'm talking to myself, right? Make sense? So make sure you spend some time. We'll take a break though now. Take a short break.